Welcome to TRS Clips, India's fastest learning portal. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell icon.
2008 crash was basically over time, like capital controls were reduced, banks got more adventurous.
What does that mean?
Like what happens is, as an investment bank, right, you have a responsibility to your investors to not make too risky investments also, right? Like you need to provide value.
Investment bank, matlab an organization where I am your client, you are the investment bank, I'll give you my money, you'll say that I will invest it for you and maybe
It's not even just individuals, it's like bade pension funds. How do pension funds pay out pension? They need to beat inflation, they also need to earn money, right? They give their money to an investment bank invests, gives them a return. So these guys basically started investing in riskier products, which was basically products based on mortgages, home loans. And they kind of played their hand because the logic in America used to be that mortgages are infallible. Everyone always pays their mortgage. So who's not going to pay their mortgage? This product is backed and secure. So what they started doing is they made products by collecting a lot of lakhs of people ka home loans, collateralizing it into a product and being like, oh, this is a financial product now. Okay, you can invest in this. They'll obviously pay the mortgage.
When you say collecting lakh of people's home loans, basically loans pay interest bhi tha. And that interest say you gain profits in that product.
Any bank that's giving a loan is earning money off the interest, right? That you're paying them. So if I take 100,000 people ka loans together and I club it together and I be like, this is the total package, this is the total earning. Okay, across all of these, average interest paid is 8%, 7%. That is now a product. So that's what these banks started trading on. And eventually what happened was in this kind of, bull run or rush, this will keep getting better and growing. They started running out of good home loans to make products out of. And eventually they started using not so good home loans to make products out of.
Good home loans means basically people who are capable of paying the loan and more.
Yes. Or people that are stable enough that you are assured by the rest of their finances, either through some collateral or how much they earn, that they will be able to pay this back.
There were basically credit agencies as well, right?
Yeah.
So tell us more about that, like how...
So it's credit agencies is a whole problem. But basically what happens is that they became more liberal with who they gave money to and how much money they gave. That's the shortest possible version of it.
तू भी ले, just giving it up.
तीसरा घर लेना है, you want to buy a fourth house also, someone's ready to give you a mortgage for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what happened in this. There's this movie called The Big Short, where these guys are just flabbergasted going to people and being like, oh, you own 4 houses, how do you afford this? And they said, loan pe liya.
It's basically in a stack of cash, if you mix couple of duplicate ones, people won't notice that. That's exactly what was happening. In a set of good loans, they were mixing riskier loans and then they would get distributed.
The logic was, suppose now there's a 5% chance that you will not be able to pay your mortgage, right? But if I take 100 people like this together with a 5% chance each, okay, then that number reduces now, because what is the chance that 100 people will not be able to pay? So based on that logic, they made these products. But what happened is over time, they started putting not so good loans inside these boxes as well.
To be able to go to the customers and say, see, we're going in such safe.
Yeah, to be able to trade on this.
Yeah.
Being like, this is a secure product, iske basis pe we'll trade.
And the fault here was of whom?
The fault was pretty much regulations were
Or banks.
Banks is the thing, the big banks, because eventually they got bailed out, which was the whole thing. That earlier, money was based on the strength of the US dollar. But what they do is, how much US dollar can be put into the market also is controlled.
Yeah.
Right? There's a set amount. Money today is like debt. Okay, a central bank creates debt to give to banks who give it out to do business. And you see, ek debt maine isko diya, wo aage usne loan kiya. Based on that, a whole system of this debt-based finance is created. Banks overplayed their hand, took bets that they should not have, and they ended up at a position where they couldn't pay. And the government, the US government, in a landmark decision at the time, what they decided to do to fix this was to print more money and bail out the banks.
Yeah. So and they still hold the power, right?
They still hold the power. Now in COVID, we've seen a large percentage of the total currency globally in circulation is actually been printed recently.
One second, I want to talk about what's happening now also. I want to dial back a little bit. What did it mean for the average investor? What did it mean for people like us? The 2008 crash, because we were 14, 12 at the time. What was happening in the adult world?
So imagine a game of parsing the parcel, okay? And at some point the parcel explodes and then one person is left with this broken parcel. Now the whole chain breaks then, right? Now if these big banks are unable to pay back their debts, that it cascades across the whole system. So you had liquidity issues, banks being able to pay back, or banks not having the confidence to lend anymore. Okay, and for the economy to grow, because already you had this one kind of like bust scenario, right? So that's what happened. That's why there was a slump, because all the liquidity got taken out of the system, because like one person doesn't pay in the chain, the whole chain dries up.
It's like a food chain. You
Kind of,
basically
yeah,
remove something in
yeah.
the
You
middle.
remove like a huge like amount of value from this system, so system won't work the same way, right?
Wow. And so basically the stock markets crashed because of this, because again,
Because bank performance, like Bear Stearns, which was one of the biggest banks in the world at that time, went bankrupt, right? So like it's things like these. The confidence in the banking system also went, where people weren't sure ki what are these banks investing in. We thought it was secure, right? If they have to be bailed out by the government for making risky bets, that removed the confidence in the system also, right, of people.
Imagine you not feeling safe that my money in my account right now is not safe.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine that. So I
And
think
that's the worst scenario, right? They call it a bank run, where you don't have confidence that the bank will be able to, retain the value of your money. So everyone tries to go and get their money out of the bank. But what happens then? Like, how will the bank do business?
what's the ratio, like the total like economy size and versus like the amount of cash in the bank? What's the ratio? Like, do we have? Because of course, like if everybody takes money out,
It's called, in economics, it's called the multiplier effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a small amount of debt that's created from the central bank. It kind of like, that's the multiplier, right? Because you're taking this debt and you're doing business with it.
yes,
So from what I understand, the RBI has ratios for, it's called I'm forgetting.
got it. But whatever that ratio is, but basically like the debt is issued.
Yeah, repo and reverse repo rates.
Yeah. So whatever amount of money, let's say the banks have, the money which they actually have, they can lend 5-6
more of
times
that.
more
Yeah,
money in the market. So if everybody just starts taking their money back, banks don't have money anymore.
No, and when the entire system is based on debt, then
Yeah.
it's like the system is by itself inflationary only, right?
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
there's a multiplier, because it's based on this debt that you're paying aage to create more business.
Yes.
so a lot of institutions, a lot of banks, a lot of people lost money in the 2008 crash. Long story short.
Yes.
But what are the long-term implications of it? Was it the birth of DeFi? Was it the birth of cryptocurrencies?
I mean, cryptocurrencies is the start of DeFi, right? Like, and that's the whole thing. When your system's based on debt and it's not based on a tangible thing, then you start to think, okay, if this as existing system also isn't based on tangible stuff, then why am I beholden to it?
Yeah.
Like, I'll just make a digital currency that's not tied to anything.
Basically, people realized that money which is there in your bank account is just a number against your name, right? It's not tied to anything, right? Which means it's just thin air, right? And the power is in the hands of very limited number of people, which are the banks, right? So Bitcoin was created with by an anonymous person, Satoshi Nakamoto, and what that is basically distributing this power, right? Like when you talk about Bitcoin, sort of, and the technology behind it, which is blockchain, a lot of things come up, right? How it works, so on and so forth. But the core fundamental reason is, or why it happened, is to distribute the power which is there in hands of these banks to the rest of the people, right?